I'm going to talk a lot today about digital transformation, digital and social transformation. Digital is the main reason that just over half of the companies on the Fortune 500 have disappeared since the year 2000. They're not adapting. They're not evolving. The businesses are not able to get out of their own way and transform. I'm reading Microsoft's Satya Nadella's Hit Refresh book. And although I talk about digital, and I am very much digital and social, print, phone, I actually took a phone call from a customer on the stage this morning, email and other channels are not dead. Digital and social are incremental. But what you'll see from the data I share today is increasingly more common. Everything is going digital. Satya talks about Microsoft somewhat being very late to the cloud and understanding how the cloud was going to transform how businesses get done. He talks about artificial intelligence, which I think is a great topic for the next BMA Colorado event, because it definitely is going to change and transform our jobs in both marketing and selling. We have to stay current. This morning I was listening to a podcast about profit first in professional services business. I work with a professional services company, and they need to be thinking more about profitability than growth as a software company. What you're going to hear, some recurring themes today, is digital and social, and this pace at which things are changing and transforming. And if we don't continuously invest in our own learning, we're dead. Okay, so what does the data actually show? This is a report that's done at least annually by a company called We Are Social, and they did it in collaboration with Hootsuite. Anyone in the room familiar with Hootsuite? Yeah, social listening and social engagement. The population, the world population is about 7.5 billion. Of that population, 51% are using the internet, which seems kind of low, but if you think about countries like India and China and other not as developed countries who don't have access, or in general access to the internet, it starts to make a little bit more sense. I think we need to be working really hard to get everybody access to the internet, because access to the internet is access to education, and education is freedom. And if you have access to educate yourself and make yourself more skilled and more knowledgeable, you'll have the ability to work and make money and live and have clean water and energy. But you'll see increasingly over time, all of the data shows that all of these numbers, the number of folks who have access to the internet, the number of folks who have mobile devices, the number of folks who are accessing the internet via their mobile devices, and the number of folks who are accessing social media from their mobile device, the trend line is up and to the right. And the pace at which people are adopting their social and digital and mobile is fascinating. Globally, there are different networks. So you can see that Facebook and WhatsApp are some of the more popular and most widely adopted networks. There are smaller networks that are more regional and global. So if you're a global marketer, you have to think about the networks in your regions. LinkedIn alone has over 500 million registered users. Doesn't mean they're all active on LinkedIn, but I have a niece who's about to graduate from college, and she's in journalism and in media production, and she doesn't know if she should have a LinkedIn profile. Huh? Do you know who your aunt is? Like, you have to have a LinkedIn profile. That is your digital reputation. It's not just your resume, it's your reputation. And in particular, in an industry where you have to show your work, that's a great place to demonstrate what you've done before. LinkedIn globally, it is used in every country. So this is a global network. I say it's not only word of mouth anymore, it's world of mouth. Social networks know no geographic boundaries, and they know no time zones. Bots, automation, and AI, by 2020, customers will manage 85% of their relationship with a business without talking to a human. If you had a choice, let's say you move and you're setting up your electricity in your new location, do you want to make a phone call, or do you want to go online and sign up for your service and sign up for automatic billing all online? Raise your hand if you want to do the phone call. Raise your hand if you want to go online. Because humans add friction to the process. If you can go online and get something done quickly and in your time, like if you're doing the phone call, it has to be Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. So what we as people, consumers, and we bring our consumer behavior into our work, we bring our devices into our work, our expectation in a business world is transforming. We're expecting more of that consumer experience in our business environment. All of this automation is really transforming marketing and sales. The lines between marketing and sales are blurring, and the roles are blending. And I remember in the early days of Eloqua, it was all about having the perfect definition of a qualified lead, where marketing and sales agreed that at this point, this lead met the criteria that it was ready for sales, and marketing would pop it over to sales, and then sales would take over. That's not the case anymore. Marketing is involved throughout the entire buyer's journey and the customer journey. And what sales hasn't shifted to the extent that they need to is they need to actually know how to get in earlier. They need to know how to engage at that unaware stage. Sales needs to teach where their buyers are learning in the early stage of that buyer's journey. And this blending and blurring, I think marketing is getting it much faster than sales. And so when I talk about sales today, you might be asking yourself, why? I'm in marketing, why is she telling me all this stuff about sales? It's because marketing is increasingly being held accountable for revenue. And so if you don't figure out ways to help sales learn how to be a modern sales organization, and you're held accountable for revenue, you're in trouble. So one more thing to add to your responsibility is knowing a lot about sales. And marketing needs to know a lot more about sales as you become increasingly more accountable for that customer journey and for that revenue number. Sales needs to know a lot more about marketing. They need to understand the language that you all know: ideal customer profile, buyer persona, buyer journeys. They need to understand how to open and engage and create awareness. But the reality is that we all need to know more about our customers. And we're living, as Forrester says, in the age of the customer. We're no longer living in the age of the seller. And it's all about the buyer now has nearly unlimited access to information and to people, their peers, their colleagues, who they trust. They don't have to get their information from the sales professional. And so we have to become more customer-centered, customer-centric, and customer-obsessed. We all need to know more about our customers. This modern buyer, she's digitally driven. 82% of the world's online population can be reached via social networks like LinkedIn and Twitter. 92% of B2B buyers start their search on the web. Mobile, who in the room has a mobile connected device? 2, 3, 4. There's always the crazies. Yeah, we're mobile and we're empowered. But with all this empowerment, we're also very overwhelmed and we're inundated. And what's happened with traditional channels, and I always say marketing starts the process of ruining a channel and sales puts the nail in the coffin. If we go back to email, there were movies. You've got mail. We liked to receive emails. And then marketing was able to go out and buy email lists or rent email lists and send a bunch of marketing messages to a bunch of email addresses. And then marketing went out and started to build their house list by offering a newsletter or a white paper to get someone's email. And then they started to be able to email at mass. And then they started to be able to automate a sequence, a series of emails to all these people. And then sales got in on it. And sales was given these tools to be able to send email and see who opened, and then send email en masse, and then send a sequence of emails. And all of a sudden, now that everybody has the ability to email everybody, nobody wants email. So we've ruined the channel. And that's not where your buyer's attention is. I talk about sales teams. Every sales organization I know, especially inside sales, SDRs and BDRs, they're running the call, email, call, email, call, email, call, email play. And buyers are doing the ignore, delete, ignore, delete, ignore, delete response. And so these channels, these traditional channels that we've just ruined, we have to find newer ways to connect with our buyers, to get their attention, to be able to engage them. And that's what digital and social is all about. That's where the attention is today. Some data I'll share with you, having just come from this Forrester event. I'm also a fan of, anyone here subscribe to Forrester? Great. Anyone here Serious Decisions? CSO Insights? CEB? IDC? Who am I missing? From an analyst and research advisory in sales and marketing, who am I missing? Gartner, thank you. I heard a whisper. G2 Crowd, yes, that's the whole, everyone familiar with G2 Crowd? And Trust Radius, similar to G2 Crowd. So this concept of user reviews. And as a buyer, are you gonna believe the reference that your salesperson gave you over the reference that the user posted on a review site? It just is really, it's a trust factor, right? So these new review sites are not new, they're becoming increasingly more popular, but G2 Crowd and Trust Radius, where users go and review software and systems, buyers are increasingly more relying on those channels. Traditional buyers versus digital buyers. This shift is happening really fast too. So traditional buyers, they wanted to meet a salesperson face to face. That's where they were able to gather their information and start to make and vet through information. Tech analysts, vendor websites, peers, vendor sales, phone, email, bless you. That is how buyers were buying. Digital buyers are more reliant on tech analysts, vendor websites, online IT forums, peers, and social media. Where's the sales rep in that? Increasingly cut out. We've gone from salesperson being very important in the buyer's evaluation, validation, decision process, to no thank you. I'd rather go gather information on my own from sources I trust, my peers, community sites, social media. I say that buyers are allergic to salespeople. They're not allergic to getting help. They are allergic to being sold. And so the disintermediation of sales and sellers, this was a 2015 to 2017 look at the data. Buyers were asked, do you prefer gathering information online on your own? In 2015, 53% said yes. I'd rather just self-serve. In 2017, 68% said yes. Asked a different way, buyers were asked, I find interacting with a sales rep superior to gathering information on my own. In 2015, 21% of buyers said yes, it's superior to engage with a sales rep. And in 2017, only 16% said yes. Again, you're probably asking yourself, we're in marketing, what do we have to do with this? The lines are blurring, the roles are blending, and as you become more accountable for pipeline and revenue, this becomes your problem or your opportunity. Sales enablement. Anyone in the room in sales enablement? Great, awesome, yay. So this is a function that is emerging and increasingly growing in strategic importance. And I think about sales enablement, I think about marketing's right here, and sales is right here, and sales enablement, you're pulling them together. You're bringing them closer. You're aligning the two functions around the customer. You're the bridge between marketing and sales. You're the translation engine from marketing speak to sales-ready conversation and value messaging. Sales enablement, I'm a member of the Sales Enablement Society, and we're having a conference in Dallas next week. And it's this grassroots effort to get this newly defined and growing in importance function to really set a charter. What is the role of sales enablement? It's not product marketing, it's not sales training, it's more than that. It's saying, look, we have a bunch of bipolar ADD salespeople who make quota less than 50% of the time and take 6 to 9 months to ramp. We can hire more of them, or we can make the ones we have more better. Not grammatically correct, but I really like more better. Right? It's this, more is not the strategy. Hiring more and making more calls and sending more emails isn't going to get it done. It's how can you be more efficient and effective? Knowledge, skills, data, technology, process, automation. It's looking at it from that perspective. 73% of B2B buyers said it's more convenient than to engage with sales. Salespeople are getting an F Buyers are saying that 80% of buyers say that salespeople are not specialized enough. They don't know their buyer. They don't know their customer. When I talk about know thy buyer, I need to know Katie Shea at a human level. I need to know what her background and skill set is. I need to know what her role within her organization is. I need to understand her personal career goals. I need to understand her company. What does her company do? Who does her company serve? What market do they work in? And I need to know her industry. What's happening in her industry? If I look at a company like GE, they were an industrial manufacturing company. They make jet engines and wind turbines. And now they're a digital industrial company. The jet engine and the wind turbine is not as valuable as the data that they can gather from that jet engine to determine a potential point of failure of a part on that jet engine to prevent that jet engine from having to go out of production and rotation and flight. They're a digital industrial company. It's all about the data. And so from an industry perspective, I need to understand that manufacturing is going through this digital transformation and what that means to their business. Know thy customer. You have to know them to serve them. You have to know them to help them. And so why is it at every sales kickoff, there's hours of product training and very little of customer training? If we're going to train on the product, they're going to sell the product. They're not going to be able to have that business acumen and that customer acumen to solve bigger problems. Forrester forecast that by 2020, 1 million B2B salespeople will lose their jobs to self-service e-commerce. GE is selling motors on eBay. My last car that I bought, I went on to CarMax. Anybody use CarMax? God, I love CarMax. It's all about taking the friction out of the process. That's what it's about. If you can take the friction out of my buying process, I'm in. I knew what kind of car I wanted. I knew what I was willing to spend. I knew what mileage I was comfortable with in buying a used car. And so I went on and I put in my criteria, and there were 12 vehicles that met my criteria. I was able to pay the $99 transfer fee to get the vehicle to Charleston, South Carolina. And I went onto the lot. I didn't even have to go with it. I could just walk the lot by myself. I went and found the vehicle on the lot, opened the door, looked around, sniffed it. And that was it. I mean, the price was the price. There was no haggling. There was no. I could apply for the loan right there. I buy the warranty there. I get my car service there. It's all right there. Taking that friction out of the buying process. We are expecting that in our business buying environment. It's the consumerization of B2B. So who's left? If buyers are allergic to salespeople, they're avoiding them, they don't want to engage, who is it that they actually get value from, that they're willing to spend time with? The attributes of the 21st century B2B seller, and I've personally gone through this transformation myself. I was a lone wolf. I was just one of those, ringers, and I would get big deals done, and I sold on my own, and I was trouble to manage, and I wouldn't survive like that in today's buying environment. It's much more collaborative. I need to understand ecosystem. I need to understand subject matter expertise within my organization, within my customers' world. I need to really think more holistically. I need to think about Operational mindset. I need to think about data. And advocacy. Your best salespeople are not on your payroll. They're your customers who are willing to advocate on your behalf. It really all comes down to trust. And your customer advocates. So the question is, how do you create customer advocates? If you have a shitty product, if you have false advertising in your marketing messages, if you have sales reps closing bad deals, you will never get to customer advocacy. You can't expect the contract is sold and now you've got a customer success department that's magically going to make this customer happy. If the marketing message was wrong, and if the reps don't know who the ideal customer profile is, who are your best fit customers that you generate massive value for, that buy from you over and over again, and when they leave a company, when Anthony left AT&T and he's joining NVIDIA, who does he call first? You want it to be your sales team. You want that relationship to exist. So salespeople need to understand the value of advocacy in their role. And they need to be thinking, I have not said the word prospect since I've been up here. Nobody wants to be a prospect in your database. I think of them as human beings, as people, as buyers, and I treat them as future advocates. I am always thinking through that purchase process. How can I ensure that they ultimately become an advocate for our company, for our products, and for me, Jill Rowley? That advocacy mindset, before they've even paid me $1, is really critical. Storytelling, and all of these are things that marketing can help sales with. You can help sales be more empathetic. Empathy is all about seeing it through the lens of someone else. You all know those buyer personas, defining them. That's important for sales. The activities of the B2B seller, what does she do? She networks with her accounts. She's never single-threaded. So single-threaded definitely is something that it's just prevalent in sales. What happens is you get someone who is highly engaged, kind of like Anthony at AT&T, who responds to every text, every phone call, every email, gives you information, shares with you how he creates his budget, where he's allocating his funds, what are his priorities, and you just build and build and build and build and deepen this relationship with Anthony Robbins. And then Anthony leaves AT&T. And your deal's dead. Because all you did as a sales rep was work with Anthony. And you didn't think more broadly across the account, who are the other parties? Who else is involved? Who else is part of this process? And thinking more broadly. So the data, it used to be 5.7 stakeholders involved in a purchase decision. Now it's 6.8. That's the CEB data. On average, there are 6.8 different stakeholders involved in a purchase decision in a B2B sale. Marketing needs to help sales know who those stakeholders are and understand their perspective. That's important for marketing. Collaborative, sharing insights, leveraging people. Data is artificial intelligence in sales is absolutely hitting it. MarTech landscape, anyone in here in charge of marketing operations? This is your world. It's been exploding. These are the number of technologies that have come into the marketer's world. In 2016, there were 3,874 vendors. 2017, there's over 5,000. How in the world can marketing be expected to manage all of this? And think about this from you as a marketer and a bunch of salespeople for all these companies. How many emails are you getting? How many phone calls are you getting? How many automated emails and phone calls are you getting? No wonder why you're overwhelmed and inundated. Because there's hashtag too much tech. So this is the world of the marketer. It's happening in sales. Same thing, but at an accelerated pace. So sales is now going through their own explosion of tools and technologies. And again, this is where sales enablement will play a very key role. Sales ops and sales enablement and coordinating with marketing. I call it MarTech, sales tech, I call it rev tech, right? We need to think more holistically about the entire revenue cycle and the revenue technology that we use. Because what happens if we think about them individually, you're gonna have overlap of features and functionality. You're gonna have disparate data sources, disconnected systems, it's gonna be disjointed. Like, we really need to think more holistically about the tech stack, the rev tech stack. But this is what's happening to sales. The old sales model, and ask yourself where your sales organization fits on this spectrum. Smile and dial, pounce and pitch. Versus the new model, the sales organization reaches and teaches, they educate, and they engage. The new model, sales professionals are teaching where their buyers are learning. And if the buyers are increasingly learning in digital and social, guess where your salespeople need to be? In digital and social. Marketing, and I think I have this advantage of having learned about social media through the lens of my marketing customer back when I was at Eloqua. I learned the power of social media very early as a sales professional. But what I didn't do as a sales professional is say, social media now is my job as a sales rep. I instead said, what do I do as a sales professional, right? I network, I build relationships. So instead of thinking about it as social media, I, as a sales professional, think about it as a social network. Social networks layer on three things to the confusing, chaotic noise of social media. Social networks layer on someone's identity. Who someone is, hashtag know thy buyer. And so when I define social selling, I define it as using social networks to do research on the buyer, the buying committee, the smarty pants people who influence your buyers, doing this research so you can be more relevant, so you can build better relationships that ultimately drive revenue, customer lifetime value, and advocacy. There's this thing called digital deposits. And here's the thing about salespeople that I still don't get. We oftentimes try to start a relationship with an ask. Can I have 10 minutes of your time to tell you about my fascinating product? You don't know me, you don't know my company, but can I have 10 minutes of your time? That's a withdrawal from an empty bank account. There's nothing in there. You can't make a withdrawal before you make a deposit. So why not teach salespeople to make deposits? Right? Digital deposits. Why not teach them how to follow people on Twitter? How to share someone's post on LinkedIn? How to share and tag someone on LinkedIn with a valuable piece of content? Why not teach them how to retweet something that the person they're trying to get their attention of has tweeted? Why not teach them how to share a piece of content that company cares about? We've got to think about deposits. And how can we teach salespeople to make deposits before asking for withdrawal? We have to teach salespeople to claim back the funnel. They're being cut out of the purchase process. We need to get them back in. One of the things that Alex Shootman, he's now the CEO of a company called Workfront out of Utah. He was the president of Eloqua. And at first, he's actually one of the leaders who taught me more about being a team player than a lone wolf. He also taught me this concept of, to be interesting, you must be interested in something other than yourself. For me to be interesting to the CEO of Marketo, I need to show him that I'm interested in him. Not that I want to get 10 minutes of his time to talk about my product. So how do I do this? I go to Google and I search Steve Lucas Marketo. And I find a video of Steve talking about his first 100 days at Marketo. And I watch that video. And I write down his words. And so when I send Steve an invite to connect on LinkedIn, I don't go on and on about 10 years building the marketing automation space at Eloqua, the original Ella Queen, millions of dollars in revenue. I don't talk about me. I talk about him. And ask yourself in your LinkedIn inbox, how many of the invites look like this? Hi, Steve. I absolutely agree. The winners in the engagement economy will use technologies to engage with people in an authentic and personalized way at scale. I've written about how AI will reinvent sales, and I'm exploring building product to support. Would love to connect, and I use my Twitter handle because Steve's on Twitter. And I want to do that multi-channel connection. He accepts my invite within seconds. Love to have you contribute to the book. This is the way that we connected on LinkedIn. I want to get face-to-face with Steve. I want to have a phone call, maybe a video call. So how do I even go further? How do I learn more about him? As I start to dig into his Twitter activity, I find out he has type 1 diabetes. I find out he has 2 kids and that he does CrossFit. He actually lives in Colorado. I talk about Forrester. Mary Shea does a great job at Forrester. She had written this post. I wanted to share it on my social network about how enterprises are embracing social selling. So I share the piece of content. I tag Mary Shea, the expert who wrote it at Forrester. I'm giving her public recognition. And I then keep track of who is engaging with this piece of content that I shared. And I notice that Karen Steele from Marketo liked the post. Okay, well, who's Karen Steele? She's the former Group Vice President of Corporate Marketing at Marketo. She liked something about social selling. She's in marketing. So how about when I reach out to Karen, I send her a blog post on how marketing can support social selling. So the content I share with her is in context of her role and of her interest. This is how salespeople need to think and to operate in this digital and social world. Email is definitely not dead. Has anyone started to receive email with video in the email? Great. Has anyone had it done well? Yeah. So Vidyard, familiar with Vidyard, anyone? Cool little company out of Canada, going there actually to Canada today. And they originally, their first product was for marketing. And it was the ability for marketing to track their videos. Who's viewing the videos? How many times are they viewing the videos? How far in the video are people getting? So as marketing has started to adopt video, you need to know, is your video getting engagement? That was their first product. Now they've developed a really neat, easy to use web browser plugin that people like me, salespeople, can record videos and have the same tracking capability. So when I met Debbie Dunham, she's the corporate vice president of worldwide inside sales at Microsoft. I won't go through the whole story of how I was actually able to capture her attention on LinkedIn. She was going to be speaking at an American Association of Inside Sales Professionals event in Chicago. I engaged with her content on LinkedIn. She noticed that I engaged, and I was able to secure a face-to-face meeting with her. After that meeting, I recorded a quick video. And that's what you see here. That's my face in the bottom left-hand corner. And the page on the beginning of my video was of a chief sales officer executive summit event that I thought she would be interested in. So continuing to make these deposits of how can I help Debbie with what she's interested in versus how can I keep asking her for 15 minutes of her time. So video is a very effective, the engagement rates of video is massive. Commenting on the things that we talked about at our lunch, she's expressed interest in women in leadership, and she has a hashtag, love my team. And so I'm speaking in the language of Debbie. I'm showing her that I understand her. I'm using video, and I get a notification that she's viewed 100% of that video. Very effective use. Digital and social. That video puts human element to that communication, and with all of this automation, that human element is standing out. Empathy is coming back. Content is the currency of the modern marketer and the social salesperson. I jokingly say that I teach salespeople how to read what their buyers read and share that content across their social networks. So when I was at Eloqua, you would never catch me without a physical copy of B2B magazine. They don't print that anymore, but I had B2B magazine in my bag. I had Chief Content Officer magazine in my bag. And I would take that physical content, and then I would share a link to the article on Twitter. So I like to read physical books and magazines and stuff, but then I would put that in a digital format and tweet it or share it on LinkedIn. Listen to podcasts, watch videos that my buyer cares about, because I need to know my buyer. So salespeople need to be reading and watching and listening to what their buyers care about and sharing that content across their social networks. The sharing of the content makes them more visible to their buyers and more valuable to their buyers. So this rhythm of 411 is they can't just share your company branded content, company branded content, company branded content. You have to teach your salespeople how to share OPC. I'm down with OPC. Yeah, you know me. I'm down with other people's content. OPC, other people's content. So content that the buyer cares about that isn't company branded, that's maybe thought leadership, best practices, so that curation of that content is what marketing can help. Curate that content, make it easy for salespeople to share company branded content and cat pictures. Cat pictures, TED Talks, inspirational quotes. We have to humanize ourselves. If all I ever shared was B2B marketing and selling, I would be B2B boring, B2B boring. I don't want to be boring, so I share things that even humanize me that I care about, right? So this concept of content, this is where marketing really plays a huge role in social selling, is this curation of content and helping salespeople find the content that can get the buyer's attention, how to share that content, how to engage with other people's content. And this is like content 3.0. 1.0 is sharing your company branded content. 2.0 is sharing third-party thought leadership content. 3.0, so if I'm trying to get GE's attention, how about I share their content? To be interesting, be interested. To be interesting to GE, I have to be interested in them. So I share their content. How to transform a traditional giant into a digital one. That's all about GE. It's a Harvard business case. That's something that would be compelling to my buyers because they're going through their digital transformations. So I share that content and I tag GE. The CMO of GE is being live interviewed on a CXO talk. I'm live tweeting it and tagging her. I'm getting her attention because I'm making it about her, not about me. This is what salespeople need to figure out because the only way to cut through all of this mass communication is to be much more personal, much more relevant, much more helpful to the buyer. This is a skill set. And doing it in digital is something that most sales professionals just don't know how to do. There's a mindset aspect of I'm not selling, I'm helping. A couple things about this continuous learning. That's a theme. Learning and training, event-based learning and training, this is a lifestyle. This is a culture. And the world is moving so fast at an exponential pace of change that if there isn't in your organization a culture of learning, you will fall behind. If there isn't this continuous improving my skills, improving my knowledge of my customer, improving my knowledge of the industry trends, then your salespeople, it would just be so much easier for me as a buyer to go to Google. Sales professionals have to become more knowledgeable about their customers. They have to engage with insights that would be helpful to their customer. And to do that, they have to be consuming content that will help them understand and help their customer. For me, selling, this is a profession. I have to be learning about my profession. Marketing, my customer, I have to be learning about my customer. And then the world and what's going on at a more macro level, I have to be learning about that as well. So this consumption of content, of reading and listening and watching and sharing is something that has to be put into place. AT&T, people who don't spend 5 hours a week online learning will make themselves obsolete. I truly believe this. We have to be investing in ourselves and our skills. And around digital and social, there are lots of traditional sales training companies, and I really think it is important to have foundational sales methodology and process in place. But sorry for the, I can get you the slides because this really got messed up. I partner with a company called Sales for Life. All they do is digital and social selling training. They weave the digital and social into your existing sales process and methodology and your systems, their core competency, and all they do is train sales teams on how to leverage the power of digital and social. And not do they don't just train the reps, they train the managers. Your sales managers are your force multiplier. You cannot have 2.0 sales reps reporting to 1.0 managers. It won't work. So if you don't go in and transform the entire sales organization and get marketing up to speed and aligned on how to support this new motion of selling, it won't work. So marketing has to learn a bit more about how to support the transformation of the sales organization going digital and social.